Alright, in today's demo, we are going to demo how to install SQL Server using configuration file. So this topic is well documented in Microsoft website. In the real world, people may need to install many SQL servers. So typically the standard GUI install is lengthy. You have to pick and choose many options, many places. You need manually input each time you perform an install. So another method is so-called silent install or attended install. It is useful for performing like massive, if you have like few tens, 100 servers to install. So Microsoft support using configuration file to do the install. So it's going to make life easy. Okay, so today's demo is going to do so. So first, we basically need to generate a configuration file. And actually, each time you perform a SQL Server install, the installer is going to generate a configuration file. You can pick up this file and reuse for the future. So once we have the configuration file, we can reuse it and for other install, either through the GUI method or use the silent install, also called unattended install. Okay, so this word is wrong, silent. Well, silent install. Okay, you remove the I. Okay, and in this demo environment, our OS is Windows 2022 with multiple disks. And we're going to install SQL Server 2022 also with the SSAS component. Okay, let's get started. So let me minimize this window. So this is the OS. We have like created multiple disks beside the C drive. I created a backup drive, user log, user data. The drive letter is arbitrary. I just make it this way. It's easy to match the purpose of this drive. Okay. So let's minimize this one. Let me go to the install. So this is the installer or install image. So we're going to click on the setup. And so we're going to go through these steps, okay, to create the config file. So we're going to go to the install. So it's going to be a new SQL Server standalone install, okay? All right, so we're going to use a developer for this demo. And for production, you can have a production key, okay? So let's go to this demo. So we need accept the license term. So we keep this unchecked because in the real world, database server don't have internet access, so we don't need to check for the updates. All right, so this is going to be the initial setup. So the Windows firewall is running, we can pass, skip. So this section is Windows 2022. That is the Azure extension. So we don't have, so we just uncheck this one. All right, so now we pick up the features. So typically we're gonna like see install the database engine service, if you need a SQL Server or application, you will check. We don't, for simplicity, we just don't need these things. Probably just take a full text check. And also we're going to check, we're gonna install analysis service, SSAS. We may also install the shared components like integration service, the basic one, not the scale out, okay? So that's it. That is the component we check. Let's say we take the instance root directory, we take this as the default C drive, okay? Because on that database server, this dedicated, most likely is dedicated database server, so we can use C drive, it's fine, okay? Let's go to next page. So the next page is going to, so decided, do you want a default instance or you want named? So we're gonna take default instance, okay? This is the default instance. You will see our install SQL Server is typically much longer than install other database like DB2, MySQL, PostgreSQL, and the good thing is it's UI install. It's relatively straightforward. However, still it's just take time. Okay. So in this install, we're gonna select this one, grant perform volume maintenance. Okay. And collision, we just take the default. And for those service account, so let's see, because in the real world, it's typically a domain-based. So we're going to use domain-based, okay? So in my case, I already have this domain user created. So for SQL Server agent, let me get from the domain controller. So I'm going to do the browse. So then the location, the entire directory. So I'm going to see, I already created a user called maybe called AS. Let me check. Oh yeah. So I'm not going to use this one. Let me use GS, okay? Agent service. Okay, so let's check this one. So I have a domain user called GS. It's going to be used for the SQL Server agent. So I'm going to click, okay? So for SQL Server database engine, so let me use a different account. So I'm going to query the domain controller to find out. I think I created a user account called ES. So I'm going to use ES, okay? Engine service. And then for the analysis service, I create a user called AS, okay? So we don't have to, for each service, use different account. We can use a common one. It's up to the corporate company standard, okay? All right, so for integration service, so I create a user called the IS, okay? Whatever name you choose, it's just a service account for this SSIS, AS, engine, So this is account. Also, we need to into the password. So the reason I'm doing so, I just want to show in the real world install, right? It can be lengthy and we have to pick and choose, every time if we go through this GUI install, okay? It's gonna take time and relative for each install, okay? So let me see. All right, I think the first password that I entered incorrect. Let me re-enter the password for that account. Now I'm entered the SSAS account, okay? Also, this name is arbitrary, okay? Different organization may choose different standard. For this demo, I just use a short name for simplicity, okay? So each time you need to make sure the password is entered is correct, okay? Okay, so we enter the password, then we go to next, okay? So that is all the parts we're gonna spend time, and depends on how complicated your environment is, okay? All right, it seems passed. Now, let's see, we're going to add the who will be the admin, right? So we can typically see we add the current user. In my case, it's the DBA user. You can add other users you want, like either through group or individual user. So in this demo, we just add this current user. So also depends on what environment security. You may choose the Windows authentication mode or mixed mode. If you choose mixed mode, then you have to enter the password for the SA password. Okay, that is the non-domain user. So I'm in this demo, I use mixed mode. Okay, so and then you're gonna go to the directory structure. So now you can pick see the data root. Okay, so then you have decided what is the system database. So I'm going to leave it a default for the C drive, the data root and system database in the C drive. However, I'm going to choose the user database directory, use the U drive. Okay, so I'm going to go to pick up the user data, U drive. All right, so the user log directory, so I'm going to pick up L drive. Let me put a subdirectory, okay, data. And I'm calling it tlog, okay, transaction log. For the backup, as we created a directory called key drive. So I'm going to use key drive. Let's see, called backup folder, okay? So like this. And for the temp DB, so we can also change those. So I'm going to leave it default. I'm mainly focused on the data directory. So in this case, because the default to C drive, so I'm going to remove it and add a new drive. So in my case, I'm going to add this temp DB, okay? So temp DB, I already created two subdirectory. One is data, one is log, okay? And so I'm going to use this as the data directories. And then this one for the log directory. So I'm going to change it to tlog, okay? So you see this process can be tedious, okay? And then go to the max DOP, okay? Let me see, already exists. So the tempdb data file is already, okay, that is from the previous install. Let me go to there to remove it. So let me go to the T drive. All right, so let me remove the previous install. So delete. All right, so let me also delete this log. All right, delete. When you drop the database or uninstall, it is the temp file is not deleted. Okay. All right. So let's try one more time. Let's go to next. Okay, it's cleared. So we also take the default. In this case, I have 4 CPUs. The max DOP also by the installer set to 4. Now go to the memory. So the memory part is probably going to take a default. So for certain, you can use the recommended and the minimum server service or the max server service, max server memory. Let's see, you want, depends on how much memory you have, okay? So the install, I just take the default. We can change it later, okay? And file stream default we don't use in this case, so just leave it default, okay? So now let's go to next. Now get to the part for the SSAS, okay? So we also do the same thing. We add the current user as the sysadmin, and then go to the directories. So this is the default directory. The SSAS is going to go to the C drive. So we don't want that. So we already create a separate drive for the SSAS. So we're going to use that one. Okay. So as I said, we call the S drive. Okay. So let's use this drive. So similar thing, we're going to call it S drive data, S drive log, and S drive temp. Let's see, you're going to call S drive backup. Okay. Similar like database engine. Okay. Just but in this case, we use a single drive, but with separate folder. For database engine, we are not only use the separate folder, we also use different drive letter, okay, to performance and other for the best practice manage the database. All right, let's see. All right, so I'm missing a semicolon. So S. Okay, so that's good. So let's go to the next page. Okay. At this moment, it is almost ready. Okay. So if we click the install, it's going to go through this install process. So at this moment, by go through this process, I already take about 20 minutes. Okay. So next install, if we go use this way, it is going the similar thing. Okay. Sometimes, people's memory feeding, maybe each install will not get consistent. Okay. So if you click install, they not only install, you see here, they also create a generate configuration file. Okay, so let me copy this one. And at this moment, I'm going to cancel this install. Okay, so I'm just purely just create a configuration file. Once I have the configuration file, I can reuse this config for other install. Okay, so let's cancel here and go to the location that config file being generated. Okay. All right, let's go to the config file. So I'm going to go to File Explorer and paste. Okay, so I'm going to go to that location. So you see this is the config file is generated. Okay, so I'm going to copy this config file to a location. You can edit this file and look at this file. I'm going to paste it on the top desktop. Okay, let's take a look at this config file. Okay, so I'm going to edit. So, but here you're going to see like, action is install. It's quiet or not, it's false. if we perform quality install, it's going to be true, okay? So you go through this, you will see, like you see the default install instance name. So everything is contained in this file. The let's see here, like agent service account, agent service startup type, and so on and so forth. IS service account, so everything. You can either change this here, or when you reuse this file for GUI, you can change there as well. But the majority things is recorded in this configuration file, then we can reuse, okay? So today's demo, we're gonna reuse this file to do the install on this server. However, we can use this configuration file and move this file to another server, perform a similar install, okay? So let's do it. All right, so for this demo, I'm going to rename this configuration file to some meaningful name. So I'm going to see 2022 with SSAS, okay? So this is the configuration file I'm going to use. All right, so I have the configuration file. Okay, now let's use this configuration file to perform install. Similar, so let's suppose this is another machine. So we go to the location where the installer we staged. So do the same thing. I'm going to do setup. Go to, so if we go this step, this is standard GUI. So we're going to use advanced. Okay, so we click advanced. So advanced is this option called install based on configuration files. Okay, so the installer gonna read the information contained in the configuration file. We're gonna save us lots of time to re-enter those information. Okay, as said, using an existing configuration to install. Okay, so let's click this one. So they will ask so we're gonna go to the C drive. We put on the desktop, right? So let's go desktop. So we're gonna pick up this one. So we just create generated, okay? So I'm gonna click open. And then certain field it's already pre-populated. So we just continue just similar like the fresh install, okay? So we're gonna just few click and to perform this install, okay? So this is our default, so we can change or reuse, okay? You see those already been picked, that is a read from the config file. And that is taken from the config file. If a different install, you don't need the analysis service, you can uncheck this one, okay? So we're gonna keep the same in this demo. So go to next. And all right, so go to next. That is the default instance. All right, so here you see the all things is already pre-populated, the username, right? But if a different install, you want to use a different thing, you can, but here it's already. The only thing you need to change is the password because you can't save the sensitive information into the config file. So we just need to re-enter this. But for the silence install, you can put this in the command line, okay? So that is another thing. But we're gonna re-enter lots of less information because lots of information is already contained in the response file, not response file, it might call it a config file. Go to next. But still, in this way, we will still save lots of typing, okay? So the only thing right now we entered it is the password information, okay? So all others pre-populated. The user we specified. So the directory structure is already populated. We don't have to re-enter these things, but we can change if we want, I think. And tempdb, it's also, if you, for example, if you use this config file to a different server, they have different file structure, disk layout, you can change as well, okay? But if you have like many servers, you perform a similar install, standard, you don't have to change. This may not change, and the memory, it's gonna, decide what you need to change. But still, you see, it's much easier than previously, okay? So let's go to next. Now similar for the SSAS, they already pre-populated the database system admin user and also the directories. So we don't have to re-enter this directory structure. So let's go to next. All right, so it's ready. So then the installer is going to create another config file, okay? So if you want to use, you can, go to that directory to look. But we already have created one, so you just go ahead to click install. So the install gonna take some minutes, as this is typical. And after that, we will have a ready to go. Okay, so I'm gonna pause the video for a few minutes. All right, it's finished. Everything's successful. So let's do some quick test, okay? So I'm close this one. So I'm gonna start the configuration manager to take a look. All right, here's the configuration manager. Let's go to SQL Server services. So everything's running. Let's go to the protocol, SQL Server network configuration, protocol. So shared memories need name the pipe disabled, the TCP IP is disabled. Let's enable it. Okay, so let's enable it. After that, let's do a refresh, restart the service. Okay, so I'm gonna restart this service. All right, so let's do a connection test. All right, so I'm gonna connect first through local. Give me a sec to see if it is still running. Okay, it's finished. Let's see. Oh, it's connected. Okay. All right, so local connection is fine. Let's see. Select. So that is. So we have Windows SQL Server 2022. Okay. And on Windows 2022. Okay, so this is a local connection, and Right now we only have system related databases. Okay. All right, so let's do a remote connection. Okay. So this is my SSMS. So I'm gonna do a test remote database engine. In my case, my server name is Windows 22. And I'm gonna use SQL Server authentication. Let's see. All right, it's connected as well. Yeah, database, system databases, and also SQL Server agent is running. So far so good. All right, so that is a quick demo to use the configuration file. Oh, by the way, if you're interested for the silent install, it's very similar. You can do a quick Google search and find the Microsoft the silent install. Basically, let me just do a quick. So basically, to do the silent install, first you have the media location. So you're going to open a CMD window or PowerShell window, run as an administrator. Then we change directory to this install. So you will see you have the setup exe. So we're going to execute the setup exe and something like that, like setup exe. Then with the options, okay, let's see, you're going to see agent service password, for example. So you're going to specify your password here. So in this way, once you specify all the required information, then you just return. So they can go through the. Also, you had to specify the configuration file. So and then you run this from command line. It is silent install unattended. There's no GUI interface. Okay. So this method is useful if you also install through like a certain centralized software, and through that to perform the installation. All right, so that is today's